Welcome to our Mind Opener Tales YouTube channel. Today, I am here with a story that tells you how to lead your life to success. So let's continue the story. Today's story is The Light Beyond the Storm. The rain poured relentlessly over the small coastal town of Mirandora, blurring the horizon where the sky met the sea. For most, it was just another stormy evening. But for a 17-year-old boy named Elias Turner, that night would mark the beginning of a journey that would change his life forever. Elias stood at the edge of the old pier, his clothes drenched, his hair plastered to his forehead. He stared at the turbulent waves, feeling as if they mirrored the chaos inside him. His mother had passed away 6 months ago, and his father, once a strong fisherman, had turned to alcohol to numb the pain. Their home, once full of laughter, now echoed only with silence and regret. He clenched his fists. "Why does life have to be so unfair?" he whispered into the wind.
The spark of a dream. Before his mother's illness, Elias had dreamed of becoming an engineer. Someone who could build things that lasted, things that mattered. His mother used to tell him, "Storms don't last forever, my son. You just have to keep your light burning until the clouds pass." But now, even that light seemed gone. School had become meaningless. His grades were slipping. His teachers had stopped expecting much from him. And his father barely noticed when Elias came home. The only thing that still gave him peace was the sea, wild, unpredictable, yet honest. One afternoon, after another argument with his father, Elias wandered toward the docks. There, he met Mr. Calder, an old ship mechanic who had worked on the fishing boats for decades. His hands were scarred and calloused, but his eyes were sharp and kind. "You look like you've been fighting ghosts," Calder said, without looking up from the rusted engine he was fixing. Elias shrugged. "Maybe I have." The old man chuckled. "Well, ghosts don't disappear unless you face them." That day, Elias stayed to watch Calder work. Something about the rhythm of the man's hands, the precision with which he brought life back to the silent machine, fascinated him. The scent of oil and salt water, the clang of tools, it all awakened something in him that he thought was gone. When Calder finished, he turned to Elias and said, "If you've got nowhere better to be, come back tomorrow. I could use an extra pair of hands." Elias did, and the next day, and the next. Building strength. Weeks turned into months. Under Calder's patient guidance, Elias learned the basics of mechanics. How engines breathed, how gears danced together, and how even a broken thing could be fixed if you cared enough to understand it. More importantly, he learned discipline. Calder demanded effort, not perfection. "Your hands will get cut," Calder told him once, as they worked in the fading light. "Your plans will fail,
But that's the tax life charges for learning something real. One evening, Elias asked, "Why do you still work, even when you're this old?" Calder wiped his hands and smiled. "Because fixing something reminds me that not everything broken stays that way. Even people." Those words stayed with Elias. Slowly, the fog in his life began to lift. He started repairing small things at home, an old radio, a cracked chair, even the window his father had smashed during a drunken outburst. His father never said thank you, but one night Elias noticed him quietly sitting by the repaired radio, listening to the music his mother used to hum. That moment, though wordless, meant everything.
The challenge. By his final year of school, Elias had changed. He wasn't top of the class, but he had focus again. When his school announced a national Young Innovators competition where students could submit designs for sustainable technology, something inside him sparked. He wanted to build something that mattered, something that could honor his mother's memory. The problem? He had no resources, no team, and no support. His father still barely spoke to him. When Elias told him about the competition, the old man simply grunted. "Dreams don't fill stomachs." But Calder believed in him. "If you think it's worth doing," he said, "then do it. The only thing worse than failure is never trying." Elias spent every evening in Calder's workshop, sketching designs and scavenging spare parts. His idea was simple but powerful: a portable generator powered by wave energy, something affordable enough for small coastal communities that suffered frequent power cuts. Night after night, he experimented. The first prototype sank. The second short-circuited. The third exploded in a puff of smoke that left his eyebrows singed. He laughed, then cried, then started again. By the fifth version, he had something that worked: a small buoy-like device that converted wave motion into electricity stored in a compact battery unit. It wasn't perfect, but it was real.
The fall. The day before the competition, tragedy struck. Calder collapsed in his workshop. The doctors said it was a heart attack. Years of strain had caught up with him. Elias stayed by his hospital bed, tears filling his eyes as Calder struggled to speak. "Don't stop now," the old man whispered. "Make it shine." Those were his last words. Elias was crushed. For the first time since his mother's passing, he felt utterly alone. The thought of going to the competition without Calder made him sick. That night he almost destroyed the generator in despair. But as he sat on the pier, watching the waves crash under the moonlight, he remembered Calder's voice and his mother's. "Storms don't last forever. Make it shine." He realized that Calder and his mother hadn't left him. They had become part of the light that kept him moving forward.
The turning point. The competition was held in the city, a world far bigger than Mirandora. Hundreds of students arrived with glossy models, professional presentations, and corporate sponsorships. Elias stood among them, clutching his rough, hand-built prototype. When his turn came, the judges barely looked up at first. But as Elias began to explain, not with polished words, but with honest passion, the room grew quiet. He spoke about Mirandora, about how storms often cut power for days, how families struggled in darkness, and how he wanted to build something small that could bring light back to people's homes. He showed them how the device worked, using a small tank of water. And when the tiny light bulb flickered to life, something in the audience shifted. The judges leaned forward. Questions followed: technical, financial, environmental. Elias answered as best he could, his voice trembling but steady. When the results were announced, Elias didn't win first place. He won second, but that silver felt brighter than gold. More importantly, one of the sponsors, an energy startup, approached him after the event. "Your idea has potential," the representative said. "We'd like to help you develop it further." Elias could hardly believe it.
The next few years were a whirlwind. The company funded Elias's education, and he studied renewable energy engineering at university. He worked hard, sometimes sleeping in labs, always remembering Calder's workshop and his mother's words. He faced failure after failure, devices that leaked, calculations that didn't add up, investors who backed out. But every time he fell, he stood back up, whispering, "Make it shine." By his mid-20s, Elias had developed a modular wave energy system, durable, affordable, and efficient. He named it the Calder Light, in honor of the man who had first shown him how to rebuild broken things. The device was installed along Mirandora's coastline, providing steady power even during storms. For the first time in years, the town glowed through the darkness, literally and metaphorically. When he returned home for the inauguration, his father, older now, sober and frail, stood waiting at the pier. "I was wrong about you," he said quietly. "Your dreams, they do fill stomachs and hearts." Elias smiled, tears in his eyes. "I didn't do it alone."
The legacy. Years passed. The Calder Light project spread to other coastal towns, then to islands and villages around the world. Elias became known not just as an inventor, but as a symbol of hope, proof that even from the darkest storms, something beautiful could emerge. He often visited schools, telling his story to children who thought their dreams were too small or their lives too broken. "Every storm you face," he would tell them, "isn't there to destroy. It's there to teach you how strong your light really is." One day, after a long speech, a young girl approached him. Her eyes sparkled with determination. "Sir," she said, "I want to build something that helps people too. But everyone says I'm too young." Elias smiled. "I was told the same thing once. Don't wait for permission to shine." The Return. On the 10th anniversary of the Calder Light project, Mirandora held a ceremony at the pier, the very same one where Elias had once stood, lost and hopeless. The town was brighter than ever, its skyline dotted with small turbines and energy buoys. As the crowd gathered, the mayor invited Elias to speak. He walked to the microphone, pausing to look at the ocean. The same waves that once frightened him now glistened under the sun. "I used to think storms were curses," he began, "but I learned that storms clear the air. They test what's built on sand and what's built on rock. I lost people I loved and failed more times than I can count. But each time someone reminded me to keep my light burning. If you're standing in your own storm right now, don't run from it. Stand tall, learn, build, because beyond that storm, there's light waiting for you." As the crowd applauded, Elias looked toward the sky. He could almost feel Calder's rough hand on his shoulder and hear his mother's soft voice on the wind. The rain began to fall. gentle, cleansing, familiar. Elias closed his eyes, smiling. He knew now that storms would always come. But he also knew something far greater. Light always returns. Moral of the story. No matter how dark life becomes, no storm lasts forever. Every failure, every loss, every setback is a step toward your strength if you keep moving forward. The people who seem ordinary can create extraordinary change when they choose not to give up. Like Elias, your greatest light is not in your success, but in your persistence, your courage to rebuild, to rise again, and to shine through the storm.